Terry, I don't, never mind, we're good. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Ansley Parker here, and it is that time. We are going to kind of break down the forecast and actually what's going on now. And I'm going to go ahead and just quickly flip over to the radar because now some of the line is kind of already spurring up a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings here, and we can go ahead and just take a minute and talk about what we're seeing. So here's how this whole thing is going to go. What I was going to do was kind of go through what we're seeing right now, go through what I'm expecting our area to see over the next couple of hours, into this evening, into Monday morning. Remember, we are in a weather impact alert through the rest of the day and into Monday morning. And because we are streaming now on all of our social platforms as well, after I kind of go through what I'm seeing and kind of go through hopefully answering some of your questions by just going through my whole spiel here. But after I do that, I'm going to turn to the Facebook comments here on our 13 WMAZ page, and I will go through your individual questions. So like I said, we are going to start with what we're seeing at the moment here, and just give me a second to pull up our actual live stream so that I can address questions. All right, got it right there. All right, so on the radar here, you can see that this line of showers and storms that we're kind of waiting to approach our area has gone ahead and spurred up really 3 severe thunderstorm warnings here, but this new box that you're seeing right here actually encompasses all 3. So that the whole point of that one was to kind of group everything together, because this line that you can see right there is moving in that easterly direction, and it's kind of all congealing into one severe thunderstorm warning. So let's just go ahead and talk about what we're seeing with this line right now. And I will mention that the National Weather Service has gone ahead and tagged these severe thunderstorm warnings as tornado possible. Remember, we are in a tornado watch, at least for Upson County, but it's likely going to be extended for our central Georgia area until 7 p.m. tonight. So these severe thunderstorm warnings that are within the tornado watch naturally have tornado possible tags. That makes a lot of sense. The conditions are all there, so they're going to be watching these to make sure they don't try to spin up any quick, brief, isolated tornadoes throughout kind of the afternoon here. So it's just really one severe thunderstorm warning that extends into Clayton, DeKalb, Fulton, and Henry counties. And let me make sure that that's all of them, because I know sometimes our box can't actually fit everything on there. And you'll have to forgive me, but I do have trouble reading on this tiny little box here. Okay, so it does look like it extends for Rockdale County, Spalding, DeKalb, Fayette, Western Henry, Clayton, and Fulton County. So maybe not everything that we have on the box there, but those are the counties for there. Again, this is north of our viewing area, so this is not in the central Georgia area specifically, but attached to the line that will eventually be heading our direction. Something else that I want to point out to you here is the motion that these storms are moving in. If we go ahead and just draw out what motion this is moving at, 35 miles per hour, so it is a slow mover, but these are easterly moving storms. And I'm so sorry, I'm trying not to have to wear my glasses the whole time, but I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing. Okay, so this is the direction that it's moving east. So the line is actually looks like it may be approaching us in just a second here, but because these storms are actually pushing east as opposed to southeast, we're actually probably looking at another at least kind of hour or so until this thing arrives in our area. So it's pushing east into kind of the East Point, Snellville, Almond, McDonough area here. This particular severe thunderstorm warning, it's warned because the wind speeds are up to 60 miles per hour in that area. I also did notice that they were talking about damage that they had already noted. So there was already reports of trees down in the area and already just kind of some damage reports rolling in from just the straight line wind gusts themselves. And when we see a line like this that has let me go ahead and clear this, that has kind of a bowing signature, which it was kind of showing earlier. And I'll try to play it back so that we can get a perspective of what I'm talking about here. But when you start to see right around south of the Carrollton area, if you can see the shape that it's taking here, kind of rounded out, showing a little bit of bowing here. As it's progressed, it's kind of still held on to that. So there was some indication there that the wind speeds were kind of strengthening. And as it's just kind of blown into past the Peachtree City, just south of the Atlanta area, still kind of holding on to that shape. So the wind speeds right there are pretty gusty. But again, this is outside of our area. So let's talk about this whole thing as an entire line. You can see out in southern Alabama, there's another severe thunderstorm warning here. A lot of lightning in this area, and they've actually had a lot of lightning kind of all morning long. I've been noticing heavier lightning strikes over in central Alabama. If we flip on also the Storm Prediction Center outlook, it kind of makes sense with what we're seeing here, right? This, which kind of is looking green on the map here, but this would be what you would normally see as that yellow color, is actually our level 2 area. So as this line has entered the level 2, it started to pick up strength just a little bit, which is not really a surprise. Back here it was in a level 1, and then this is kind of just an area for marginal thunderstorms, things that are below the severe weather threshold. So now that it's entered our kind of level 2 outline, it's not super shocking that it's picked up in strength. It's running into the heat of the day. It's running into a lot of available energy. So that's kind of why it started now to spur up the severe thunderstorm warnings, to spur up the tornado watches, and just generally become a little bit stronger. But you'll notice it does continue to maintain the idea that we're going to have a weakening trend as it pushes further into central Georgia here. So with all that being said and kind of a glimpse of what's going on at the moment, let's talk about when we are specifically expecting to see impacts here. I'm going to flip over to the future view, but first I'll show you the Storm Prediction Center outlook without the radar on top of it, just to show you that most of our counties here are in a level 1, with our western counties, our northwestern counties, being in a level 2. And this is kind of along the lines of what I think the real severe weather potential is going to be. Sometimes, you know, with the Storm Prediction Center outlooks, we are saying that maybe it's not the greatest indication of where exactly the severe potential is going to be, but I do think as this line continues into this level 2 area here, this is where it's really going to hold on to its strength the best. We're in the heat of the day here. There's a lot of available energy, and I think that there's just enough right around our northwestern counties where that's probably where we're going to see a couple of the severe thunderstorm warnings, and where we have only the tornado watch here for Upson County. So where we're kind of monitoring right now for some of those greater impacts as it makes its way into this level 1, which will really be overnight tonight and into early Monday morning. Most of the Sunday afternoon, evening impacts are going to be for our northwestern counties. This is when we start talking about the overnight hours. There's no sunshine. We're out of the heat of the day. Things start to die down just a little bit. There's definitely a transition to some more rain in the area. But I will also mention in the day 2 outlook, so this one is for tomorrow, for Monday. It has some of that weakening for the overnight hours, but then just as this line tries to creep back into Monday afternoon, so back into the heat of the day one more time, that's why they've gone ahead and bumped up a level 2 for Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery, because the line is going to be going back into the heat of the day, if that kind of makes sense. We're in the heat of the day now, so we're under the level 2. Then we're going to fade into the overnight hours and things will die down just a little bit. And this is a long duration event, so we're still going to be dealing with it Monday afternoon, and that's why they've gone ahead and bumped up just to a level 2 for Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery. Just saying, okay, things could get a little more gusty in this area. We may have a couple more severe thunderstorm warnings than in kind of the center part of central Georgia here. So that's a look at your outlooks there. But let's look at what the graph is saying specifically with the timing of this whole thing. Now, I will mention this has gone back and forth a lot, kind of in the late afternoon here. The models have had a really hard time with picking up what's going on in the atmosphere at the moment. So the timing has faltered just a touch. We were talking earlier about our weather impact alert was set for this evening. I think it's maybe shifted up just a touch. We're talking now about we're in the late afternoon hours. It's 1:08 p.m. right now. So we're talking about an arrival time probably within the next hour or so for our northwestern counties. But again, it's done this strange thing where it's stalled out and just really sat over one area for a long time, and then it'll pick up and move a good clip forward, and then it sits down for a long time. So based on the way the severe thunderstorm warnings are right now, the storms are only moving at 35 miles per hour, which is really slow. So I think it's still just going to take a little bit of time for it to get here, but it'll probably be earlier than that 5 p.m. arrival time that maybe we were talking about earlier in the week here. So If you can kind of see that on the future view, it's trying to pick up on some of that stalling. I would say that the graph model is not doing an awesome job with the arrival of this line, and I'm going to show you the HER model in a second here that I think may make it a little bit clearer. But if we just keep playing the graph model out, it actually wants the initial brunt of this line to miss us, probably because it's picking up on how it's moving easterly. I don't think it's going to miss us entirely the way the graph is showing here. Tries to miss us until really, this timestamp here is 3 a.m. on Monday morning. So tries to have it missing us until really early morning Monday. And then it tries to bring the line into our northwestern counties. I don't totally buy that 100%. I think it's going to be moving into our area a little bit earlier than that. And then this is pretty accurate when we're talking those early morning hours Monday. That's when our southeastern counties are going to start to get involved. So this thing is really, I cannot emphasize how slowly it's moving. We're going to be dealing with this all day Monday as well. So our southeastern half should really stay dry for most of tonight. But then as we kind of head into the early morning hours Monday, I'll play that back. You see the timestamp now around 6 in the morning. Then it starts to come into our southeastern half here. So playing that towards Dublin, towards the Trutland, Johnson, Wilkinson, Washington County areas. And then we just stick with this all day long. The hope is that we transition mainly to rain here for areas that have already seen the initial line come through. But of course, we maintain that level 2 for Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery because they'll probably be in the heat of the day when this thing is coming through. And then we have a big swath of rain that comes through in the evening and the late night, which is why with how long this is going to be sitting with us and how much rain we're expecting to see, that's why the flooding potential is there for us as well, especially in our northwestern counties, because they're going to just keep on seeing this system train over the same area. So an all-day Monday event until kind of the overnight hours. This is start of the day on Tuesday, the early morning hours, and then we are finally in the all clear. This thing moves out of here and we'll stay clear for the day on Tuesday. I'll show you the same thing on the HER model to kind of show you what I buy just a little bit more. The reason, if you're curious why I'm going with this as opposed to the graph, is because of the way the setup looks right now. So what's going on the radar outside looks a lot like what the HER model is showing right here at this timestamp, which means that it's doing a good job of picking up what's in the atmosphere right now. So if we play this one forward a little bit, it actually does kind of have this line entering our area over the next couple hours or so. Typically with the HER model, my rule of thumb as a meteorologist, just to kind of take you behind the scenes a little bit, I usually go about an hour forward to the timestamp that it has here. So right here it says 4 p.m. As Ansley, as the meteorologist, I would usually go, okay, the HER is usually running about an hour behind. I would say around 3 p.m. is probably when we can expect to see this line making its way into our area. And then it does do the same kind of thing where it just sits over the northwestern counties for kind of tonight. And then in the early morning hours, then we start to see a transition to our southeastern counties. You see how long it just kind of sits over really our level 2 area here, which I think is also why they went with the level 2 for our northwestern counties. And then we start talking about early Monday morning. And that is when this thing will start heading into kind of the Lawrence County area, the Johnson County, Trutland County, Dodge, all of those kind of areas, Pulaski, Peach. That's going to take a little bit more time for the line to get there. So like I said, it's just going to be something we'll have to be patient with. We'll be dealing with it throughout the overnight tonight and then all day on Monday as well. But it's kind of the tale of two stories here. And in fact, if I can just do this before I turn to questions, because I will start answering some questions here in just a second. If I can just do this, which maybe I can't, I might have to. I'm trying to draw a line on here is what I'm attempting to do so that we can talk about the difference. And I keep saying northwestern, southeastern. I'm talking really kind of about this dividing line here. So unfortunately, I-75 and I-16 aren't necessarily good lines. So if you can kind of put yourself south and east of the line that I've drawn here, you're kind of in the early Monday morning stage when this thing is going to be coming through. If you are north and west of this line, that's when you're going to be dealing with that throughout the evening tonight and into the overnight hours. So you can see like this timestamp still says 5 in the morning. It really just may take some time for this line to get all the way past this little kind of line that I've drawn here for lack of better geography to kind of separate the two sections here. So if you're in south of this line and you're thinking, I thought this was going to be a Sunday afternoon thing, it's heading your direction. It's just going to take its time getting there. So hopefully that distinction helps out a little bit. And then I'll talk about what we're expecting to see with this line, because I know that that is one of the main questions as well. So I'll go back to our level 2 threat here, where I have the outlines of what we're expecting to see. You saw the severe thunderstorm warning that is north of us right now. It has with it wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. So gusty winds, kind of similar to last time, is going to be one of the main things we're watching for. We're watching for areas that pick up and get pretty strong straight line winds at times. So gusty winds is going to be thing number 1. Number 2 is going to be the flash flooding potential. So watching this line out towards our north and west, it spurred up a lot of flash flood warnings. We are in a flood watch for only Jasper, Putnam, Monroe, and Upson counties, I believe. Everybody else is not under that watch, but there still is a potential for some really heavy rainfall across our whole area. So flash flooding is going to be important as well. We're going to keep our eye on that. And then at the bottom of the list is a chance for a brief spin-up tornado. I would say right now the chances still aren't extremely high, especially compared to what we saw on Monday. We're still relatively in a low-end chance. And with tornadoes that we're talking about with this specific line, we're not talking about major tornadoes or long-track, long-lived tornadoes. I'm talking about things that are brief spin-ups, if anything. So that's kind of the threats there that we're going to be paying attention to over the next few hours and into Monday morning. But the hope is, as this line makes its way out of the level 2 area into the overnight hours, that we make a little bit of a transition to maybe some rain, and that kind of cools things down in the atmosphere to help the severe potential go down just a little bit. So talking about rainfall, I know I'm going to see some questions about this here in the next few minutes. Let's talk about specific totals. Now, what I want you to take away from this map here is not necessarily, oh, I live in Sparta, I'm going to have 1.2 inches. I want you to think more about the trend that this is showing here. So I do think it does a good job of showing there's going to be some heavier rainfall totals for our northwestern counties that are going to be dealing with this for just a little bit longer, and they'll have a longer duration event in terms of the amount of rainfall they're going to see. I think the trend here is a little bit heavier towards our northwest, and then a bit lighter as you push further south and east with this line. The thing is, though, we're still talking about 1.5 inches to up to 4 inches possible across the whole area. So I think up to 4 inches is probably our northwestern counties here that are in the flood watch. Remember, the flood watch is, and I'll just go ahead and show it to you, it's Jasper, Putnam, Upson, Monroe. I believe that is all of them. And give me a second to find this flood watch. But that's kind of the trend that I want you to take away here. The lighter areas will still have heavy rainfall. They'll still have close to 1.5 inches. And then heavier areas could see up to 4 inches. That's going to be on the pretty high extreme end of things if that does end up shaping out like that. So here is the flood watch. It's loading. Let's see. There we go. So yeah, that is the counties that I was talking about there. This extends until tomorrow, until the whole thing is all said and done, just to kind of pay attention to those low-lying areas near bodies of water, especially for driving, just paying attention to the roads. We always say turn around, don't drive into areas that you cannot tell how deep they are, because that's when you can run into complications with drowning. So that's the flood watch there. And I will show you the tornado potential as well to echo kind of the same thing that I was talking about before, that the chances are low end, but we do have a chance to see something spin up. That is possible. And all the severe thunderstorm warnings that we've seen so far have been tagged as tornado possible. And I'm seeing a notification from the National Weather Service, so I'm just making sure that's nothing related to our warnings. Okay, it's not. So we'll play this out here, and you can see, just to give you perspective on the scale, the high end of tornado potential would be where you're seeing pinks, where you're seeing reds, a lot of those darker colors. The low end of this scale is what you're seeing here, the greens, the lights, colors, the whites, things like that. And that's what you're seeing on the map here, is the really low end potential for what we're going to just keep calling brief, isolated spin-up tornadoes. If anything, the potential is there while this line comes through. So it's kind of there throughout Sunday into early Monday morning. And then it's fading out as we push into the day on Monday, because remember, the initial line is actually going to push through, and then we're just going to see some rain after that. So here's kind of it fading out as that initial line moves through, and then by the time we're in the afternoon, we should be transitioning to fully just looking at some isolated showers as opposed to the severe potential being there. So hopefully that really does fade out as we head into Monday morning. Of course, there still exists a level 2 for Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery, but I think that's going to be more for the early morning hours on Monday. So with all of those threats being outlined and with some of the timing being shown, I promise you I'm going to recap everything that I just said. I'll go through basically every single parameter one more time, but I will open up the forum to answer questions in our chat here, because I know now that we are on the streaming platforms on our social medias, there may be a couple of questions. So let me refresh the live stream and see if I can see any questions, which I can't read. Unfortunately, I will have to use these. Okay. All right. I'm seeing a lot of questions about specific location. So I will go through the timing one more time, and I know it's a little bit, this is kind of a murky situation in terms of the timing of this whole thing. It seems very unclear because it's such a long duration event, and some of it's just rain and some of it's severe potential. So I will go through that whole thing one more time, talking about specific counties. I'll try to do specific names of specific counties so that we can kind of talk about that one more time. Thanks for the love of my glasses. I'm sorry I have trouble reading our tiny little computer here. And that's really most of the questions I'm seeing. So feel free, if you have more specific questions besides location, to drop those in the conversation here. And while that's the main thing that I'm seeing, I'll turn to the conversation of specific locations. So let's just go ahead and start one more time with what we're seeing now, just to check back in on our satellite and radar picture and make sure there's not been any major changes. I saw that they've just kind of continued the severe thunderstorm warning that we have here and maybe gone ahead and started a new one for what's going on crossing state lines here. If you can see, let me drag the radar out here. If you can see this, I think that this may be continued or may be new, but this is making an easterly direction. So I want you to imagine the whole line moving like this. So it's going to take a minute for the actual line to start sweeping into our area here. And the severe thunderstorm warning that exists for Atlanta is actually not heading our direction. It's making an easterly track. And if we kind of just go ahead just to check in with the whole system, we are in a tornado watch for only Upson County, but the Storm Prediction Center and the National Weather Service, they were talking earlier saying that they likely would be extending this into our area when we get closer to actually seeing this line come through here. So we're going to be kind of just keeping our eye on rotation for the rest of the day. But like I said, it's definitely not one of my major concerns. And if we do happen to see anything, it's going to be brief spin up, if anything like that. So right now I'm not seeing any signs of rotation from, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep trying to act like I'm above this. I can't see. I'm not seeing any signs of rotation at the moment here. And when we look at the velocity, the bright blue values that you're seeing there are just indicating that the wind speeds in that specific area are getting really high. So from about Atlanta down to Fairburn, where you can see the bright blue value, that's where the wind speeds are getting pretty high. But there is not, to my knowledge, any real signs of rotation here at the moment. The reason that I'm checking is just because they are under a tornado watch, and it kind of is just giving me a depiction of what we might expect to see here. So certainly expecting to see some strong straight line winds. The wind gusts here are up to 60 miles per hour, but luckily right now we're not picking up on signs of rotation. So before I switch over to talking about the timing, the one thing that I forgot to show was the tornado watch, and I know I keep repeating, it's just for Upson County at the moment, but that is the story here, and maybe I might be able to move it around. Oh no. So for the rest of our area, the reason that it hasn't been extended is not because Upson County is under a higher threat than everybody else. It's just because the National Weather Service is saying, okay, it's probably going to be moving closer to Upson County than as opposed to Monroe, maybe Bibb, Jones, Crawford in the next few hours or so. This is a slow mover. So they will go ahead with a tornado watch probably for the areas that are under the level 2, likely in the next few hours when this line gets a little bit closer to sweeping across our whole area. But like I said, and I'll just keep reiterating it in case there's people who are just joining, the tornado potential is relatively low. The reason that they had to go with this is just because we are in the heat of the day. There is enough in the atmosphere where this line may want to start turning and drop something briefly, but just as quickly as it would have dropped, it will pick right back up. And to be honest with you, when this line has been out in central Alabama and over in northern Georgia so far, I think I've only seen one tornado warning, and that was in central Alabama. So luckily so far we have really not had a ton of warnings, honestly not even a ton of severe thunderstorm warnings, just now that this line is entering the kind of area just between Atlanta and north or central Georgia, that's where we've just begun to see some warnings get issued. So let's go over timing one more time, and let's talk specifically about location. We're going to use the HRRR model here just because I think it does a little bit of a better job explaining how I feel about what this system is expecting to do. So by sometime probably in the next few hours or so, that's when this thing is going to enter kind of the Jasper, Putnam, Monroe, Upson County area, making its way towards Bibb. You may have a couple showers if you're in Bibb or Jones, maybe even Crawford and Taylor counties as well. The actual kind of severe potential with the line may just take a little bit longer to get there. We may be talking about a Sunday evening, Sunday night situation here. Remember, I always say that the HRRR model here, which is the one that we're looking at, maybe is a little bit behind. So sometimes I take this timestamp and move it up just an hour or two. And if you did that, then we're talking about kind of a late Sunday night situation for, again, still just our northwestern counties. And if we keep taking this to overnight and early morning Monday, you see how it just sits over the same area for quite some time. I feel like a broken record just saying how much of a slow mover this thing is, but that's the Storm Prediction Center has done a good job with the level 2 versus the level 1. It's almost exactly what you're seeing here. So if you are, let's do my line one more time just to show what I'm talking about. If you were kind of north and west of this line where you can see all of the rain, all the potential storms, that's what you're going to be dealing with through the evening here and into the early morning hours Monday. If you are south of here, it's not that it's not coming your direction, it's just that it's taking its time to get there, and it's probably going to be more of an early morning Monday situation. Now, it's not an exact line that I've drawn here, but it's a general trend that the further northwest you are, the earlier this thing will be to you, and the further southeast you are, the more you just may have to wait on it a little bit longer. So let me clear that, and I'll keep playing this out so we can talk about when it will finally go into kind of the southeastern central Georgia area. And again, the timestamps here, it's early Monday morning, so it's really just kind of during the Monday morning period. And then hopefully by kind of late morning, so you can still see some of those bright values here, which is why, again, the Storm Prediction Center maintained a level 2 for Telfair, Wheeler, and Montgomery, just as it kind of enters the mid-morning hours Monday. It may still have enough energy to pick up maybe a strong gusty thunderstorm. I'm not really talking about a great severe potential. And then as we head into the early afternoon, we will finally kick the severe potential out of here, and you can see what we're left with is really just light rain, maybe steady at times. There may be a couple of heavier showers. There may be some lingering rumbles of thunder, but as we head into Monday afternoon, we really should make the shift to mainly rain. And then finally, my goodness, we are dealing with this for quite some time. By Monday night, the rain will begin to move out, and then we are talking about clear weather for really most of the work week too. It's not even just Tuesday. Hopefully we can take a true break from severe weather this week, because I know we just came off of our severe weather event for Monday, and I, like you all, do not want to have another one. So hopefully we'll have a break for a little bit here. I'm turning back to the comments just to see if there's any more questions that I can address specifically. And I will, like I said, go back over all the same things in terms of rainfall totals, in terms of the watches that we have out there, just because I know people may be streaming on from time to time here. Okay, so I'm seeing questions about the watches specifically. If I think we're going to be under watches. We are, again, to reiterate, only under a tornado watch for Upson County, and the Storm Prediction Center, like I said, is planning on likely extending that. If I had to say to who, I'm probably going to say somewhere under our level 2. It may not necessarily extend into all of central Georgia. It kind of depends what this line looks like by the time it actually is making its way towards us. So let's pull up our radar with our Storm Prediction Center outlook here so that we can kind of look at the two at the same time. And I am just trying to see. Okay. So there's a look at the line here, again, in easterly direction, so it's not quite in us yet. The only county that is under the tornado watch is Upson County here. And This is the level 2, kind of the lighter green color. It's supposed to be yellow, but it's looking lighter green on the radar here. That is what I'm thinking that they may do, is they may go ahead and take the tornado watch to the areas that are in the level 2. But it's possible, if they kind of evaluate what the line is looking like, that they don't do that. They'll let us know, or that they kind of extend it a little bit further just to say, hey, we're just going to keep our eye on this across the entire central Georgia area. I know, just coming off of Monday, it may be fresh on your mind, and we did have 2 confirmed tornadoes in Houston County. So I know you may be thinking, okay, how much does this compare to the severe potential that we saw on Monday? And I'll say generally it's a bit lower. Remember, on Monday we were in a level 3 risk for everybody in central Georgia. What we're seeing here is a level 2 risk that transitions to a level 1 and briefly back to a level 2 for tomorrow morning, just to kind of say some of these thunderstorms may get gusty. We're probably going to have a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings as it pushes into our area. And with some of these severe thunderstorm warnings, there's a chance that they may want to turn just a little bit for a few moments. That's kind of the overarching theme of this whole thing. There's going to be some heavy rain because of how long and slow moving this whole system is. But we're just talking about a couple thunderstorms that will probably have some gusty winds, maybe a few severe thunderstorm warnings here and there. And we're just keeping our eye on the chance for any of these to try to do a little rotation. Because of the tornado watches and because that's something that the National Weather Service is paying attention to, I think they're going to be sensitive to any areas that are trying to turn. So they will probably warn those, and we'll have a pretty good idea of the areas that they're monitoring for rotation. But a minute ago, when I was checking on the severe thunderstorm warning for North Georgia, I did not see signs of rotation. So good news, not great news. It was still some pretty gusty winds, but it was good news that the storm wasn't trying to turn. And you may have just seen the flashing here just north of Montgomery. They kind of just are carrying this severe thunderstorm warning with this line as it pushes easterly into the state here. So what we're doing is playing the waiting game for the next few hours or so. We'll probably see this line try to creep its way. If it can get a little bit more of a southerly direction, so you may be able to see some of this is trying to have a little bit of a southerly movement there, but generally the whole line is moving east. So it may just take a few more hours for this thing to actually start getting into our area. And then we play the waiting game all night long and most of the day on Monday while we just wait for this storm to push across our entire area. This is one of the slowest movers that I have seen since I've been here. So let's see, and I'm going to check with the National Weather Service chat one more time. Okay, so what they're chatting about in the National Weather Service is really not even this one anymore. I think that they're probably going to be able to let this one go at the time it's set to expire. The timestamp there is 1:45, and they'll probably be able to drop it. But what they're talking about is this one that is probably making its way towards state lines over the next little bit here. They're saying it's kind of maintaining strength as it's moving, so they'll probably go with another severe thunderstorm warning, and maybe that is even an expired warning that our system has taken some time to pick back up on, but they're going to be paying attention to this as it kind of creeps into LaGrange and this area of Georgia. But again, it's not making its way directly towards us here. It's all kind of moving like this, just almost grazing our northwestern counties, and then it'll start to move into our area. So I'll turn back to the chat one more time, but that is the general gist of this thing. We're going to be checking in kind of all day here. In fact, we're almost at 1:30, so meteorologist David Guerrero will be in here in just a few minutes, and then 2 of us are going to be tracking this thing. We're going to be doing live streams for the rest of the afternoon. We have another one planned for 4 if we don't have to hop on the stream before that to kind of talk about severe thunderstorm warnings. That will be the next one where you can kind of ask questions. And yeah, a great reminder that I'm seeing in the chat as well is just having ways to receive notifications, not relying on kind of the outdoor sirens, because those are for if you're outside. So making sure that you have a way to receive alerts on your phone. I know I have to remind my brothers of this all the time. My sister is great with it. She's good about that, but my brothers, just kind of showing them that you can do it, even just on the Apple alerts on your phone in your settings if you have an iPhone. And then of course we have alerts that get sent out, so if you'd rather have an app like the 13 app, you can also use that, or you can use National Weather Service apps. Just generally having a way to be alerted with things like this is going to be the best way to just stay prepared. But that's kind of the general questions I'm seeing about timing. I will one more time just roll over this thing And I'll show the rainfall totals as well just one more time because I did see a question about that. So in terms of the rain, again, I didn't want you to get too nailed down on specific numbers that you see on this map, but what I want you to take away from it is generally the trend that it's taking, that our northwestern counties may end up seeing a bit heavier rainfall, and that's why they are in the flood watch. Of course, this is kind of outlined. And then further south and east you are, the totals may be a bit lighter, but I want you to also notice they're not non-zero. The totals are still close to 1.5 inches, if not more, in a couple of spots. So everybody's going to get their fair share of heavy rainfall, but I do think that the higher totals where we're watching for flooding is going to be further towards our northwestern counties. And one more time, we'll just take it for the timing, and then I think we are going to go ahead and kind of finish off this live stream. And like I said, we'll have another one set for 4 p.m., but because there's severe thunderstorm warnings that are just to the north of us, it's possible we could be back for another live stream tracking a severe thunderstorm warning if that does kind of move into our area. So we'll collaborate here in the next couple minutes and see about what the next situation will be. But the next set live stream is at 4 p.m. So here's a look at the line again. Sunday night, if you are in our northwestern counties, I'll draw my little line one more time for you to kind of give you an idea. But this is going to be a Sunday night, early morning Monday event for our north and western counties. Let's do my line one more time. I think it's kind of a good visual of what I'm talking about. If you are kind of north and west of this line here, this is going to be your situation from about tonight into early morning Monday. If you are south and east of this line, I don't want you to think that it's not coming to you or that it passed you or that it wasn't so bad. It is heading your direction. You just probably won't see it until kind of late morning, Monday morning. And then this thing will start to push through our southeastern counties, Lawrence, Dodge, Bleckley, Pulaski, all of those areas. And then we are finally through with the severe weather potential by early afternoon on Monday. And then we transition to kind of a steady rain for the rest of the day on Monday and even into kind of the late night hours Monday. So this is a long duration event, but hopefully when we make the transition to rain, then we can go ahead and say, okay, in terms of severe weather, we are in the all clear, but we just have to wait for our atmosphere to make that transition to rain. Hopefully it will do that sooner than later. So I'm going to do one more once over in the Facebook comments here. I do see a question about tornado chance. So one more time, I will also just pull up the tornado watch just for people that maybe weren't with me from the beginning here. But the only tornado watch that we have right now is for Upson County. Everybody else is not under one because the line is not moving into our area most immediately. They are saying Upson County because they're saying, okay, that's probably the area that's going to see the impacts from this line first. But they may, like I said earlier, extend this into areas that are under the level 2 because of the atmosphere that we have here. We could see them extend it further if they see fit, or they could just say, okay, I think this atmosphere is stable enough and not extend it at all. But we're just going to kind of have to wait and collaborate with the Storm Prediction Center and the National Weather Service to see what they want to do over the next few hours or so. That's when a lot of the details of this are going to start to come into focus, because we're really going to see what this line does as it runs into our specific atmosphere and kind of what it wants to do. So we're going to keep our eye on the tornado watch. Right now it only exists for Upson County, but I do think it's possible we'll probably see it extended for a few more counties. My best guess is going to be the counties that are under the level 2, just because I think that's where the environment will still be unstable enough for the line to want to turn. But if it holds off enough, and we're talking about overnight hours, it really just may not have much to work with, which is the hope here. So I'll show you too the tornado parameter, just to echo the same sentiment that the tornado potential in general is extremely low end. If you start talking about colors that are purple, oranges, reds, that's when you're looking at a higher potential. But even before I play this out, you can see we're talking about greens, oranges, whites, and that is on the low end of the tornado potential scale. So in terms of tornado potential, we're talking about things that would be brief spin-ups, and they would probably pick back up as soon as they touched down. It's not those long track, long duration, high intensity tornadoes that we were kind of worried about under higher level risks. We're still under a generally pretty low level risk here, but it is possible that we could have maybe just a brief spin up or two throughout the evening and maybe even into the overnight hours here. And you can see that it just kind of maintains that white green color throughout our whole area. So it's possible through our whole area that we could be looking at a warning, but I think it's fairly unlikely. It's definitely not like the chances that we were looking at on Monday when we were under the level 3. So the tornado watch that exists now extends into Upson County until 7 p.m. I saw a question about the timing there. Extends until 7 p.m. like I said. So it's like if this thing is just really going to take its time to get into our area. The timing that the models are having a really hard time with, which is why I'm kind of taking a second to get my words here, because we're just going to kind of have to wait and see when this thing actually starts rolling into our area. But I do think it could be in the next hour or so, at least for Upson County, where they've already gone with the tornado watch. Remember, I said they did that because it was most immediately the area that may be seeing the impacts from this line. But some cells ahead of this line are trying to push into our area here. It's just a really slow mover. These warnings, they're moving at 35 miles per hour. So we may just kind of be playing the watching the radar game over the next 2 or 3 hours or so to see, okay, when will this thing really move in here? But I think you could maybe be seeing a couple of showers, especially in kind of Upson, Pike, Lamar, Butts area, maybe in the next 30 minutes to an hour or so. And then maybe more talking about that initial line in a few hours. This thing is just a real slow mover. And also, something else that I just wanted to point out was in the National Weather Service chat, they are talking about really high rainfall totals that have already been recorded. So aside from these severe thunderstorm warnings that we have at the moment, where you're starting to see some of these darker values in terms of reflectivity is where a lot of rainfall is coming down in a pretty good amount. So watching for flash flooding as well. We'll be kind of paying attention to see if they go with any flash flood warnings. Right now, the only one looks to be kind of over the Montgomery area. And that's what this green box is here. That is a flash flood warning. So we'll be watching for things like this throughout the afternoon and evening as well. This is mainly an impact for if you have to be out on the roads. And actually, the National Weather Service chat has gone with what we call a special weather statement, which you may have heard us mention before, but if you haven't, a special weather statement for kind of a few counties that are nearing us. So I'm going to try to draw it on the radar. That's what I'm trying to do here, because that's not something that pops up on our system here. But with the severe thunderstorm that we have right now, instead of extending into a new severe thunderstorm, they've gone with what we call a special weather statement that kind of just extends into, which this is going to be not very well drawn, but extends into Jasper County here. So they've taken the line and said, okay, it's dropping down, the wind speeds are dropping down just a little bit. We probably don't need to go with another severe thunderstorm warning, but it's still got some gusty winds. So as it makes its way into Jasper County, which would be probably the first area under our areas to be in any sort of immediate way of this line, it looks like Jasper County will be first, and they're under a special weather statement, not a severe thunderstorm warning, which is good news. All this means, all that being said, is that this line right here under the severe thunderstorm warning is weakening as it pushes into Butts and into Jasper counties. So that is actually positive news, but that's kind of the most recent update that they just made in terms of watching these lines. So I guess that does answer one of our questions, which is when will this be moving into our area? It looks like this will be pushing into Jasper County most immediately here. This specific cell, kind of right over 75, will be moving into Jasper County. And putting this thing into motion, you can see the whole thing is just going to be moving kind of in this almost directly easterly direction here. Let's play it out. So it's almost like, it seems like it's about to come our direction, but it's pushing more like this as opposed to just coming straight towards us. What's next immediately probably going to be coming towards us is what's going on over in Alabama, and this may take a bit of time to push all the way into the central Georgia area. So we're still looking at likely over the next hour or so, probably for Upson, Monroe, Butts, Jasper, this whole area right here is probably going to be seeing the impacts most immediately, maybe in the next hour or so. So with that, I'm going to hop off here, and I think we're going to be back. I'm laughing at your comments about my glasses. I was trying not to make anybody think that that was a severe weather situation. I just can't see. I am going to collaborate a little bit with our production team, our producers, and see what the game plan is going to be over the next few hours or so, and then we will be back. We're going to be here, me and meteorologist David Guerrero are going to be here all afternoon. So we will be back and continuing to do live streams, tracking this whole line. So what I'm going to do is hop off now, get with my team, and then we'll be back to you with some updates. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you probably very shortly.